Okay, this is the portion of our evening where we can ask questions, and I know Rod had his hand up early. I don't know if you still have a question there, Rod? You have to unmute your mic if you want to talk. Okay, well, Crystal's iPad.
What do you think is the first covenant that we can find in the Bible? From my understanding, it's Genesis 1:14, and in that he declares that he is going to make again a covenant with mankind as the holy days. So the feast, I find, is his very first covenant, because these are appointed times that he's going to save mankind. If he didn't intervene in mankind's history as laid out in the holy days, there would be no salvation. And that's where I take the covenant back to. I'd like to hear what others think. Thank you.
Can I make a comment, Don?
Sure, the question was directed to you.
Yeah, I agree with you, Phil. It's more a conceptual covenant, that is first Adamic covenant. But the word berith is used first time in Noahic covenant. That's why I'm calling it as it's a more formal way of putting the word berith, Genesis 9. But if you see conceptually some other place, I'm totally in agreement. I have no objection to that. I'm done.
Any other questions about the presentation? Topic of the presentation? The burning bonfire in Eau Claire. I'm assuming that's Tom Cress's.
Yeah, sure it is.
Okay.
And I just had a comment on when you said when the covenant was completed between men, they would take it and nail it on the wall, and there was a hole left in there, and it reminded me of the deck of cards that my nephew had on his table, and when they finished playing with the cards and in a casino, they would drill a hole through it, and then you could take those cards, and they were completed for any use that could be in the casino at that time. So I was just wondering if that had something to do with the same hole that was put in the covenants. It was finished. It was complete. It was done. Just a thought. I have no idea.
Tom, that's perhaps the continuation of the ancient practice where they would nail the document, nail it. The contract is nailed. So that is done, that is closed, no longer operative. Perhaps I see that, but others can give their insight. Thank you.
Robin?
So what is the deeper significance of the shedding of blood for God's anger to be appeased? Like, I mean, I get it's a substitute for our, it's our sin, it should be our blood. But it seems like when I think about it, it seems like there's got to be more to it, and I'm not really comprehending. Like, David in one of the Psalms just says, well, blessed is the man to whom God does not impute sin. Well, that was well before there was a savior. So I just feel like there's more to it, and I would like some input on that.
Can I give my input, and then we will ask the Robin, very good question. Excellent question. Here, God is building these covenants step by step fashion, and they're kind of shadow of something bigger and greater that would eventually come. So these are echoes of something that would be yet a bigger future event. You and I know this shedding of blood is shedding of blood of Son of God. When it happens, that pleases God, and the whole mankind is under the wrath of God, under the judgment. It is decreed that we all should be decimated in the lake of fire because all have sinned. And that is the decree, underlying assumption. When Son of God with sinless life and laid down his life, shed his blood, and offered it kind of an altar to God the Father, that appeased, that pleased. God was satisfied because all the requirements of justice for all of our sins is fully met. And then the chapter of judgment is done, and the new page of grace and goodwill, all this new page has started with the new covenant. For that to explain to us, you need all these shadows, all these echoes of that. But otherwise, in just a ritual thing, if you offer a bird and its blood, and a cattle, and some animal, how would it please God? How would it be like a sweet savor to him? It doesn't make sense if you take this in isolation. That's my 2 cents. But if others have greater insight, Robin would surely appreciate, and I would also be greatly appreciating, because it's not my solo thing. It's all of us collectively responsible. I'm done.
Crystal's iPad?
I want to echo back to the first covenant. The reason I pick it on the holy days is because Passover is one of those, and that's part of our discussion tonight. And he said he sacrificed the Passover lamb. The decision was made before the foundations of the world. It was pre-Adamic, before man was there, in Genesis 1:14. Later on, he swears by it. He says his covenant is everlasting, and is established as the sun and the moon. They can't be changed by people. There's nothing any human being can do to modify it. So if you take Passover as the penultimate covenant, the real thing, the foundations of the world happened after that decision was made. And again, we're talking in linear time and not the way he thinks of things. He can think of the things that are from the end, from the beginning. So, because he's got the power to do that. So that's my 2 cents. Is the Passover was actually the penultimate covenant, the blood sacrifice of Yeshua. And it was pre-planned from the beginning. Thank you.
Robin?
Okay, just kind of a follow-up question. So, well, first, just a quick comment that occurred to me, that when you said that all men are under God's wrath and deserve the lake of fire, it's kind of funny that he uses the term lake, because that's also, we think of that as water, but he said he wouldn't flood again. He wouldn't destroy with water again, but he will with fire, but he's still going to call it a lake, which I think is funny. although it's, I'm sure it's molten fire, so it's whatever. Anyway, that's kind of beside the point. Okay, so judgment, mercy, and faith, and the blood is what satisfies God's judgment. And then is it an automatic, like we know that some people are still under judgment. So what is the process from going to go from under judgment to under mercy? And why is faith last? It seems like it should be judgment and then faith and then mercy.
Can I answer her?
Yes,
This is a general pattern, general rule, general sequence of things, judgment first and then mercy. But you don't see any conditions in the first Noahic covenant, Robin. But as you progress towards next components, next covenants, Abrahamic covenant, still largely unconditional. There are few conditions. When you come to Sinai covenant, more conditions are added. And when you come to new covenant, a lot more conditions are added. So even though God sent forth his son, this is John 16, so that the world may not perish. The whole world, the Greek cosmos, is now under context when we come to new covenant. He doesn't want anybody in the cosmos to perish, but all may come to life. Whosoever believes in my son. So that is an open-ended statement, but that is not realized for every man, woman, child on the earth down through the ages, because they're simply not called, not open. So there seem to be timetable, but when all this timetable is executed, when you come to that statement that the mercy has reached everybody, but some have choice of rejecting mercy and stay with judgment. That's another concept. That even though intended purpose is mercy for all, but people can reject mercy. That's where the danger of unpardonable sin and all categories of sins. But others, please come in and throw your insight, please. I'm done.
Eileen? You have to unmute, Gail.
Yes, sorry. So thank you, Tigor, for that presentation of the covenants. And you were talking, I cannot answer the others questions, but what we have experienced here, we know that the blood is precious. It is life itself. So in the US, it's not common anymore, or was it even, I don't know, with the native Indians, but here the tribes, they have sacrifices given to the spirits. It still was going on. We realized that like I don't know, in the 1970s, I didn't know that we still had headhunters here in the Philippines, but they're now Christians. So and then the blood, they put it, they would kill a chicken, a ritual for certain witchcraft things. Okay, and even now, sad to say, Catholic Church, I don't know in the Christian community if they have pressed the words of Christ in the New Testament, it's not allowed to eat the blood. That's one of the things. But as a Filipino, our old ways, we ate blood of pigs. So I stopped when I knew about this, and I thank the Lord that my siblings, and then finally the last one was my mom, and she stopped eating the blood. But sad to say, in the market areas or food stalls, some food stalls, especially in Manila, they would serve blocks of blood, coagulated blood from animals. I'm not sure if it's usually the pig blood. So it's still a long way. If that's a covenant from the start that all of Noah's family should be not doing, but it's violated here, and now it reminds me that I need, as an intercessor for my own country, to plead that to be taken out from our culture, because it's still very much alive. And there's so much information in the Bible that has yet to be told to people. So, and one more thing that I was surprised, the Kunoy tribe, the treehouse dwellers, I just heard from a missionary that the grandmother of a particular now Christian member was telling him that they would sacrifice a baby to the spirits for a successful hunt or something, or usually it's a successful cropping of their just for rice, just to have a successful rice harvest of kaingin. That's slash and burn. So there's still more to go for the tribes, for us to, in your case, your prayers are much welcome for who are still practicing such things. And you would think at this day and age that won't be being done. Maybe the witchcraft of the sophisticated people, okay, but to the tribes, at least it's been eradicated, like headhunting has been eradicated in the 70s and 80s in the northern Luzon of our country. And I'm surprised that was such, I knew it was that bad. So, and now everywhere there's need for prayer. And we need to continue to pray for your country, because your country is a catalyst for others. And we need to prevent bloodshed. And that's a big prayer for us now in the China Sea, West Philippine Sea, with the Chinese boats and the Filipino boat collision. And we don't want that to escalate, because we will be your buffer zone. The Philippines has always been your buffer zone. When World War II came, you were hit, but then because we were part of the United States then, we were the ones occupied, and the war came to us. It never went to the mainland because it was stopped here in the Philippines. But we suffered losses because of that. But still, we believe, we thank the Lord for your country, for helping us to have the real word of God, because your country were the ones who had the Thomasites. They were called the first missionaries to come to the Philippines to evangelize and help us learn the true word of the Bible from book to book, from cover to cover. Because in the Catholic before, only the priests have the words and they are the ones to interpret, and not the whole Bible is given, nor do we have the Bible in our hands. So we need each other to pray for one another. So thank you very much.
Rod? If you're talking, we cannot hear you. Okay, now you're muted. Now you're, no, now you're muted. You're unmuted. We're still not hearing you. Is your mic plugged in? Or is Zoom connected to the right mic? We're still not hearing you.
You can type in chat if his mic
Right,
is.
I think you'll have to do that because your mic isn't working. You put it in chat and I'll read it aloud. While Rod's trying to get his microphone working, are there any other questions or comments? Rod, on the bottom where your mic is, there's a little up arrow. Click that up arrow and it'll give you select a microphone. Make sure your mic is selected.
Hello?
Hello, Lorene.
Yeah, I was just gonna say good night, everyone. Hopefully I'll get up in time to catch you tomorrow. Take care.
Okay, tomorrow's topic
Night,
is
Lauren.
trial and the word tribulation.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, great. No,
What was
I've been
wrong?
thinking about the
Mike.
covenants
Mhm.
and vowing. What's the difference between a covenant and vowing? To me, it seems to me that the covenant is sort of a plural vow. And the best example I can think of a vow is Hannah. Hannah is barren. She makes a vow, and she gives birth to Samuel. But she has to give him up. That's part of the vow that she'll give up Samuel. Maybe there's some other. Paul makes a vow in the New Testament times, but it's interesting. I was reading about vows, and Josiah makes a vow with the Lord, and it seems to me that vows, if that may have been the thing that caused them to be carried off, because they didn't keep their vows. Everyone vowed to do everything the Lord has says, because it says about vows, and thinking of vows as covenants, is that if you don't keep your vow, God loses interest in you. So I'm wondering if that can't be thought of. Okay, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Can I answer that question?
Yep.
Yeah,
You
by all
sure can.
means.
So, Rod, this is whole part paradigm. There's a whole thing that has parts. So, covenant is the whole thing, and the vow is a part. Every covenant has some kind of vow behind it, but every vow need not be a covenant. Covenant is much bigger and it has more complexity than a simple vow. Vow is binding on the person who made that vow. But covenant is also binding on all the parties. But covenant has terms and conditions, a documental laying down of the terms and conditions. There's a blood that ratifies the covenant, and the and penalties for violation, and the benefits of remaining faithful to the covenant. All these things are there in addition to just a vow. I think at least that would help you to think, uh, uh, develop your own understanding. But fundamentally, bigger thing is covenant, and a smaller unit of a covenant is a vow. Can we call every vow as covenant? I don't think so. It's my opinion. But every covenant, can you say it's like a vow? Of course, yes. I tend to agree with that. I'm done.
It's my understanding that covenants are common in archaeology. They find them all over the Middle East. And the language of the Bible is like those covenants. A lot of times when a kingdom fell to another king, they made a covenant with him because he had a going system there. You know, he just said he wanted to receive so much silver every year, and you know, and would worship the same gods or something like that. I think that's interesting.
Crystal's iPad?
So you started out with the Noahic covenant and how it was almost basically one-sided. It was Yahweh intervening with mankind so that mankind's survival would be ensured, and the wickedness wouldn't overtake and destroy everything. John 3:16 basically says the same thing. And one of the interesting things that Herb Slinsky showed me, he took it, he was a Jew, grew up as a Jew, lived as a Jew, and became interested. He said if Yeshua was really the Son of God, he should be able to find it in the Old Testament only, without any help or any predictions from the New Testament. He should be able to find it and find that he was. In fact, that's what he did. It took him several years, but he's got a study that he produced out of it. And one of the pieces of linking terms is right arm or right hand. And it's interesting that all the way through the Old Testament, Yahweh's talking to himself, and he says, I can't find any person to save humanity. So he spoke to his own right arm, and his own right arm became salvation. Again, you can see that in all the way through the Psalms. Isaiah 62, verse 8, the Lord swore by his own right hand and by his own mighty arm, never again I give your grain to your enemy, or your food will be foreigners' drink, and new wine you have toiled. That's just one place that he's talking about his right arm. He does it many times in like Psalms 89, verse 13. Mighty is your right arm, strong is your right hand. Your right hand is exalted. Psalms 98, verse 1. Sing to the Lord a new song. For wonders he has done, his right arm and his holy arm. It's really interesting. It seems like it's John 3:16. For God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son. Again, that's Passover. It seems like it's a covenant, but it's a creation covenant. All of creation's a covenant. He's giving us something that we can't get. And that's a one-sided covenant, but that's what he chose to do. So it's a very interesting concept. I wonder if you've thought about the concept of his right arm being covenant. Thank you.
Fascinating story.
Marlene?
I was looking at the concept of the bloodshed. When you look at the whole purpose of what the Father and Christ did, all the stuff going on, it revolves around love. This was their whole drive and the whole purpose. You had man that sinned, and you love them so much. And what is required, what is needed in order to take away that sin and reestablish a relationship with them again. So you look at Christ, who has life. He's the only human that was born that had life. All of the rest of us being born, we were dead spiritually since Adam and Eve. The day they did that, they died spiritually, and every human being was born dead, basically. But Christ was born, and he had life in him. He is life. He's the resurrection. And then he gives his life, which is the blood of his life. The blood of the human body is the life. And he gives that life. So in turn, we could have eternal life. I just find it interesting, this whole circle of what he's doing and how he does things. And then tying in with the covenant and the blood that's required with that. It just seems there's a lot of pieces here that just come together with the blood.
Any other comments?
Yeah, certainly the Moses, the covenant with Moses is finalized with blood in Exodus, I think 25 or so.
Sure.
The overall paradigm of blood, as we discussed today, we see the same pattern all through the covenants. There is a big impending judgment, and then the blood somehow appeases or somehow concludes the judgment phase, and or at least stops judgment, and then initiates a new page of mercy. And we see this more and more in different layers and different aspects. Passover, that's how we began. We want to understand Passover. Now, if you take the first Passover, where Passover lambs are slain, what is the concept? The impending judgment is everybody in Egypt would be decimated by death angel. There's a widespread, it is like a flood. It's an avenger of death, avenger of blood. There's an agencies of God's judgment bringing death upon people. And when that agency comes, there is no discrimination. It just sweeps and wipes. But there should be a provision to stop that judgment from touching us, or at least we are spared from that judgment. Like Noah and his sons and his family were stopped by the ark. Here, if you take the Passover, first Passover, all the Israelites would have perished, all the firstborn. That's another interesting sub-story within the main story. The sub-story is death of firstborn. All the firstborn are going to die. That is the decree from God, either Egyptians or Israelites. But only exception is blood on the doorposts and the lintels. And you are introduced with the lamb, the animal lamb. And when the death angel sees the lamb, he wouldn't touch that house. And all the firstborn in that house are not touched, saved by this widespread impending judgment. So that's how the blood stops. Blood saves, blood protects, blood hides from this impending death. So all the firstborn are declared to die, decreed to die. That's one preliminary. It's kind of echo of something bigger that's going to come. And we realize the importance of all these things in their full sense only when we come to New Covenant. When we come to New Covenant, all the people on the earth, every human being is decreed to die. Second death. So somehow it has to be stopped. Then the Lamb of God is introduced instead of lamb. And then all the firstborn would die, but only those who are born again, second born from above, born of spirit, born of water, would not be touched by this second death, lake of fire. That is we are talking about the fire, lake of fire that cleanses the whole earth. So if you want to survive, you need Lamb of God, and you should stop to be firstborn. You have to be born again. I think I spoke enough. Just something to think about. I'm done.
And wait, there's more.
I was going to say, any other comments? Go ahead, Tagore. There's more. Chris's iPad.
That's the reason I see Genesis 1:14 ushering in the appointed times. All of the holy days are his appointments, his messianic appointments throughout time to intervene and to carry out his plan so we don't end up in the lake of fire. That's how the lamb is sacrificed before the foundation of the world. Before mankind was even created, he created the Sabbath for man. He created the Passover for man. He created all of these other things for us, for our good, for our necessity. not just our luxury, but for our necessity. Man, it's humbling to think that the creator of the universe would think so highly of flesh and blood that he would do that. But that's what he's done. For God so loved the whole thing that he gave his only begotten Son, that we should not perish. That's true. So I see the messianic promise all the way from the foundation as being the first and probably it not almost, it is the ultimate covenant. And it predates all the rest of the covenants. That's the way I view it. Thank you.
Well, while everyone is thinking of another comment, daylight savings time starts Sunday, 2 a.m. Don't forget to spring ahead 1 hour. We won't be changing our time until April. So the rest of the month of March will stay at 7 o'clock. Most likely in April we'll go to 7:30. That'll give all those people an extra half an hour, get things done while it's still daylight before we start. So we used to go to 8. A lot of people said on the Eastern time that was a little too late. So we'll go to 7:30 in April. So our first presentation in April will be at 7:30, and then Prophecy Insights will stay at 7, and of course the Coffee Clutch will stay at 8 a.m. So
that's after Passover. After Passover.
I was just going to do first week in April.
Okay.
Keep it simple. First week in April, starting first week in April, we'll go to 7:30.
You said Eastern, but did you mean Central?
Well, I said for the people in Eastern time, 7:30, which would be your 8:30, was too late.
Okay.
Or 8,
Okay.
9 o'clock would be too late.
Okay.
So it'll be 8:30 your time, starting April, first presentation in April.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I know. I don't talk very clearly.
You don't English so well?
I don't even American so well. I was corrected by one of the people in England who listen to our broadcast via YouTube, and it's too early in the morning for them to listen to us. I think it's like they're 5 or 6 hours ahead of us, so they listen via YouTube. And I said English one time, and they corrected me, saying, "No, you speak American. You don't speak English." I said, "Okay, I accept that." Any other comments?
Good presentation. Thank you. I'm going to bug out and go to bed.
What?
Good night, Phil.
I stayed awake for the whole thing.
Oh, that's fascinating.
And yeah, and I
Thank you.
enjoyed it very much. Thank you.
He wasn't talking about the board of nails that he's sitting on to keep him awake.
Oh yeah. Good night, guys. Thank you.
Good night, Willard.
Good night. And if you're looking for something to do during the spring holy days, we have on fee score. Thank you, Anna. some of the various places that are doing the week-long event. Hopefully we'll have the Eau Claire up sometime soon. I haven't put that together yet, the information Tom gave me. And Hal, I believe, is also doing a week-long thing.
Don, I'll be
Yes.
back in a minute.
I'll give you 2. Actually, as good as that presentation was, I'll give you 5.
Thanks.
Any other comments about presentation on covenants? Or at least the start on the covenants presentation? Next week, there's going to be a change. He has me down as speaking. It's going to be Alan Turner talking about Psalms 1. He's going to be doing on and off presentations about the Psalms. I still have some work to do on my calendar presentation because I just found 2 more. Again, tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, the word trial and the word tribulation will be our study topic. Thomas put in the chat room, Thomas says, put in the chat room, has anyone heard of the book Blood Covenants by H. Clay Trumbull? It's copyrighted is 1885. I have not heard of it, but I am not one who reads.
It's actually quite a old book. The preface was written in January 30th, 1893. I don't know which edition that was, and the second edition. So I have the second edition here, and I was studying that so I could better understand the actual blood covenant. It's pretty deep, goes back a long ways. They used it in Africa and various other places. Talks about how Livingston went about and with all the tribes, and he would make blood covenants with all these tribes, and he'd have marks all the way up his forearm and both sides, all representing the different covenants he made with the different tribes as he managed his way through Africa and didn't want to get himself in the pot, so to speak.
Yes.
And it goes through indications. The third section is indications of the rite in the Bible. And like the blood covenant of circumcision, blood covenant tested, the tokens of the Passover, blood covenant in Sinai, the blood covenant in the Mosaic ritual, and blood covenant in the Gospels, and how they're applied. So there you go. There's also the salt covenant.
I'm back.
Great. Tom was just talking about blood covenants by H. Clay Trumbull, copyright 1885.
Not familiar, not heard of it.
It was before our time.
Have you gone through that? You can share that with us.
It does cover the Mosaic covenant and various others, blood covenant in the New Testament, on and on. There's quite a few of them. There's also the threshold covenant, which is written by him as well. It was published in 1896, and it's also referred to as the beginning of the religious rites. So there's quite a bit. A while back, I did a lot of study on the covenants. Excuse me. Salt covenant, it's another one I was mentioning.
Yeah, salt covenant is very plain, pretty straightforward. In Chronicles, several places, God calls his covenant as covenant of salt. Salt, covenant of salt, there are two understandings or two explanations people have given. Salt is a preservative, so it's a preserving covenant. It's eternal covenant or perpetual covenant. That is one explanation. The second is more probable. Salt is tied up with sacrifice. Every sacrifice has to be salted with salt. So either it's a aroma or one of the aroma agents, or still I'm researching that, which Jesus uses that. Every sacrifice has to be salted with salt. Then he calls us, we are salt of the earth, light of the world. If salt loses its flavor, there is no way to make it salty again, except to be tread down underfoot by men. So he's again taking us back to the covenant, new covenant, and this salt. So all the covenants, like most of the covenants, Sinai as well as Sion, both the covenants are covenants of salt. That concept is always there. I'm done.
The two books that I was talking about are both in the public domain. So these books were basically copyrighted or well before everything's. The books I have are reproductions of the original work. But they put a nice hardcover on them.
1 second, I'm noting down those books. Which of these two books do you recommend first?
I believe the Blood Covenant would be first.
So you would give preference for that. Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
I will try to procure them.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I picked him up. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Oh, we might try. It's Kessinger. I'll put it in here. Kessi. Kessinger.
I'll see if it is available somewhere online. I'll get it. Otherwise, I'll take a photocopy of yours when I come for the Feast of
Okay,
Tabernacles.
this is Kessinger Publishing LLC.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, and the
That's the
yeah,
first
the
book, right? Blood Covenant.
that's the Blood Covenant.
Yeah.
The it's this www. There's their web. That's published on the book. I'm assuming it's still there. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, you can find it there.
Yeah. If you're able to Google it, I can find that. This is never ending. We think it is
Yeah.
simple,
Mm-mm.
but there would never be a point in your life where you can declare that now I know all about covenants. You would
Yeah, look at how many books are there about the Blood Covenant.
Yeah.
The reason I looked,
Yeah, go ahead.
the reason I was studying it was because I wanted to understand the covenant where God made it with Abraham. He laid it down and split the animals, and he walked through it. And
Yes.
it's for the fact that he had to keep the covenant for man because man can't uphold their end of the bargain. The man would die and not be able to do it to keep his part of the deal and have it go on forever.
Yeah, we would be covering that next presentation, Abrahamic covenant. That splitting of animals and then
Walking between them.
yes. Are you very familiar with that, or
Somewhat. I don't know that I'm very familiar with anything. Because every time I start studying it, I realize there's more there.
he cuts through big animals, half them,
Mhm.
and birds he would leave them whole, but kill them nevertheless. And then he falls asleep, and there is a nightmare he sees, and then the pitch dark. Then God passes through them.
Mhm.
And God passes through them. You have two lights. Isn't it interesting? One is God the Father, and other is Christ. So you have both the beings now enter into that Abrahamic covenant. That is the kind of prelude, or you can say foundation, that paves the way for new covenant. Just fascinating. Why two lights? One is the fire and other is torch. There he mentions the word berith, covenant, with Abraham. He doesn't mention it with David. He doesn't mention with Adam. Even though conceptually they are like covenants, but he doesn't use the word berith. So I'm focusing on those covenants where the berith is mentioned.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Again, this is more like a crash course, shortened version, only 4 messages we would have in this series. Before Passover sets in, we want to finish the new covenant. I'm very pleased to hear that you're doing this independent study and research into the covenants. Appreciate very much.
Any other comments or discussion or fellowship or anything, or we can just call it an early night?
Yeah, maybe we can stop recording and talk about anything else, any other biblical topic. If
Good
not,
idea.
comments.